Good morning, Doug. It's been a week. We had a week off. Lots of has happened, as always. I thought we should start with the one big, beautiful bill act, the OBA, that was passed by the House, not yet by the Senate, and all of its just a handful of the measures that are included here. So, just would like to get your take as I go through each one. Number one, permanent tax cuts. This extends the 2017 tax cuts and Job Act provisions beyond their 2025 expiration.
That's wonderful. Okay, who can argue with that? Some people do argue with that. They say, well, it's going to increase the size of the deficit. But wait, that's the problem of the US government, not the problem of America, the way I see it. Because the way I see it, the US government is a separate entity from the American people or the American country. So if it's costing them revenue, that's good. It's money that stays in the pockets of the people.
I love that analysis. I totally agree. I mean, why should families have to tighten the belt when the state doesn't even attempt to tighten the belt at all? Second thing is many of the Doge provisions were not created into law, so they get washed away. There were some executive savings that are still going to, continue, like 160 billion a year, something like that, but nothing that's going to make any difference in the grand scheme of things. So that didn't make it.
Well, let me amplify that a little bit. It was wonderful. It was stupendous when Musk came out, a very intelligent and competent guy, and said, we'll cut $2 trillion from government spending. Then he reduced it to 1 trillion. And now it looks like 150 billion at worst, which is nothing in today's context. And most important is that he's quitting in disgust and frustration. And the fact is that the helmsman sets the course that sails the ship, as Chairman Mao said. And now that Trump is quitting, Musk is quitting in disgust, the whole thing's going to fall apart because the people that he's going to leave there in Doge don't have the
strength of will.
Exactly. So it was a disaster. It was a PR stunt. And the things that he uncovered were just scandalous and outrageous, but nothing's going to be done about it because the people in Washington don't want to break their rice bowls where that money's being spent.
What do you think about the idea that the richest man in the world, privately at least, and one of the smartest, fought the law and the law won?
It means that the situation is hopeless. This trend is going to continue until we wind up in an insuperable crisis and the whole thing blows up. So we had our shot. We had our day in the sun. And it didn't happen. And things are, the way I see things, are going to get worse on every front. And the Republicans, who are worthless anyway, are going to lose the midterms. And then the Democrats are going to be reinstalled. And then it gets really bad. So, morning in America.
It's over.
It's over. It lasted 6 hours. It was great while it lasted.
It's gone. Okay, child tax credit increases $500 through 2028. It's from so up to $2,500.
Okay, whoopee.
SALT deduction cap raises the state and local tax deduction cap from $10,000 to $40,000 for households earning up to $500,000.
Yeah, that's a sop to the Democrat states with high sales taxes, real estate taxes, income taxes. Means they can deduct those egregious state taxes from their federal tax bill. So it helps the blue states, hurts the, relatively speaking, the red states. Bad news.
And it was Trump who got rid of the SALT deduction.
Yeah.
It's back.
He's a person who doesn't see these things in terms of right and wrong. And more, he's being transformed into just another politician who has been totally corrupted by the power that he has, and he loves power.
Okay, tax exemptions on federal taxes on tips, overtime pay, and car loan interest. Certain cars only, American-made cars, I believe, are now tax exempt.
Well, I'm all for it, but do you remember that he was talking about abolishing the IRS and the income tax early on?
Sounded like a good idea, but
Yeah.
sold well. But honestly, the tips probably really move voters, a few voters, in a way that getting rid of the income tax altogether would not, because they don't qualify for income tax. My guess is by the earnings level.
Yeah, about half the people in the country don't pay an income tax. They just pay FICA, Social Security. So yeah, quite correct.
Yeah,
But
well,
anyway, I'm glad to see it happen.
yeah. One thing I wonder: do they still have to pay FICA on those tips?
Ah, that's a separate question, isn't it?
Because
Yes.
it's an important one. Because right now they pay nothing on those tips because they mostly go undeclared,
Hmm.
right? When they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, Trump savings accounts. He establishes $1,000 government-funded account for children born between 2024 and 2028. So while he's president, he can claim credit for all those children that are born in America by giving them $1,000.
And it's a welfare program where the state is giving money stolen from the populace in general to a particular class of people.
And
So
what account does this go in exactly, and how is it invested? That's my question. Probably buy
perhaps
some
it's like
federal bonds.
yeah, perhaps, yeah, that's right. How will it be invested? Probably government bonds.
Oh, debt ceiling increase, no surprise. I know we're here to cut taxes. That's definitely a reason. Balance the budget's why a lot of people voted for Trump. Well, they're raising the federal debt ceiling by 4 trillion.
4 trillion. Well, that'll last for a while, a couple of years. Okay, great. Who cares?
A couple of years, but if you have a market crash or you have a recession, it's not going to make it through 2 years.
No, you're right, because if the market crashes, uh, income tax receipts will go way down. And of course, the government will have to bail out all kinds of entities and individuals. So the deficits will skyrocket. If we have a real financial catastrophe, which is, I think, in the cards, the deficit won't be 2 trillion a year. It'll probably go to 5 trillion a year.
Yeah, the next time he calls Congress in to address the debt ceiling, he'll do as the Democrats did, where they temporarily remove it rather than put a dollar amount on it and have to deal with all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, this is all just a moving paper fantasy. So what's the other thing that
this is healthcare and social services, Medicaid reforms. They did cut a lot of Medicaid and food stamp type benefits by basically pushing it down to the state and requiring work for a lot of people who are not working.
okay, well, that's nice, but nobody talks about eliminating these things. I mean, look, I keep getting back to my basic proposition when I look at anything like this. It's that the state is not Uncle Sugar that's giving us wonderful things. It's your enemy. It's a predator. It's an institutionalized thief. So I'm not favorably inclined towards any of these things. I'd certainly like to see Medicare and Medicaid abolished. Medicare, absolutely abolished. If you're 65 years old, and uh, which is when your health starts going bad, if you haven't set aside money on your own, then bear the consequences. I'm sorry, I don't want to pay for your sick old age.
And of course, it's quite a bit easier. I mean, especially when you look at the stats, it's like so much of the cost of healthcare is in the last 6 months of life.
Yeah.
Just to hang on that little bit. And it would take the sting off if they weren't taking 15% of your income, or 17%, I think it is now, for FICA, which includes all of those things, right? And Social
Yeah.
Security. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
Some SNAP adjustments. So they're reducing a bunch of the administrative costs. And yeah, something that they say will affect the food assistance program for approximately 6 million adults. Basically, it's a work program, as I understand it.
all these things do absolutely nothing but bankrupt the average person and corrupt him by allowing him to rely on bread and circuses from the government. So these things should be abolished, and of course they will be when it all collapses, and it will collapse. But how far in the future will that be?
Not long, Doug. You're going to see it.
Yeah, I think so.
I
At
think
least I hope I do, because I'm one
you're
of
going
those
to see
people
it
that are
too.
old enough to collect Social Security and Medicare and all the rest of that nonsense at this point.
Well, one of the things I found very interesting, there was a video circulating on social media not long ago about a woman who was complaining that she'd been reported about her receiving all these benefits because she had housing that cost her $15 a month, as well as her contribution. And she was earning $2,500 a month in food stamps.
Wow. So this is a very clever fraud that she's managed to perpetrate. How did she do that?
Lots of babies, I think. But still, that's a lot of money. I mean, when you think about the average American earns, is it $40,000 to $50,000 a year? So after taxes and all that other bullshit, they've got like 30 to 35,000 left over, and she's getting like $30,000 a month or $30,000 a year for food costs.
Plus lots of other subsidies. It's
Right.
disgusting.
It shows you how bad these programs have gotten out of whack, and they need cutting. And this does cut a lot of those programs requiring work and stuff like that, which I think that's healthy. Student loan policy, they're replacing the existing forgiveness programs with stricter repayment options, eliminating subsidized federal loans for undergraduates.
The government should not be involved in education whatsoever. And it's the government and its subsidies and loan programs that has made higher education as expensive as it is. And I'm glad it's so expensive that many people aren't going to be subjected to it anymore, because it's, at this point, pure indoctrination and wokeism.
It is. And I also think it was a crime for this to be an exception in bankruptcy law, right? Where you can't get out of your student loan repayment no matter what. I mean, if you're gonna have bankruptcy law, if you accept bankruptcy as like a civil society thing, then they should be able to discharge these debts too. Destroys their credit, but it also teaches the companies who loan them, that they better be more careful about loaning money out.
Yeah, that's right. And frankly, when kids are in college, they really don't have any grip of things like finances in the real world and the meaning of money. So it's all like, they don't consider these things.
Right.
They don't. Yeah, so they're being trapped and turned into indentured servants to pay for their ridiculous educations, quote
Yeah,
unquote.
if you've never earned $100,000 in your life, how can you even begin to grasp the trade that you have to make in your life to repay that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
This has got to be another time bomb that's going to go off at some point. When, I don't know.
I don't know. That's the U.S.'s largest asset is our student loan balance. Come on, what do you mean? It's a time bomb.
That's right. That's right. It is an asset, kind of, I guess, along with these miseducations that the kids have gotten.
Right. So defense spending, increasing the budget for the Pentagon by 150 billion for military enhancements, focusing on unmanned systems like drones. You got to say, I know there was almost $1 trillion budget before, Doug, but there wasn't any money for drones. So they had to add another 150 billion.
Well, and of course, within the next couple of years, we'll actually have real Terminators, just like in the movie too. So you have to pay for those things somehow. after
And,
all.
and you couldn't get it by sacrificing the F-35 or any other outdated or aircraft carriers or anything that doesn't work but well anymore.
No, all that stuff is just junk. It's just toys for the admirals and the generals. It's really too bad. I hate to see all this capital wasted. Like we apparently, we or the US government, I should say, has about 5,000 M1 Abrams tanks that are in storage, kind of rotting away, quite frankly. I mean, they're just expensive paperweights.
Yeah, when I was in the Army, even just to keep your V running, the level of maintenance required on that vehicle was quite they had a very strict schedule. It had to be maintained very rigorously to keep that thing operational. I can only imagine what the M1 is like.
Oh, that's right. And finding the people that can do it. And the expenses are unbelievable. And these things are not very useful anymore with drones.
No, or Iskander missiles or anything else for that matter. Yeah. And okay, so what the next one was the border security funding. So it commits 70 billion to border initiatives. So there's a border wall in there. I know people will cheer. That's great. By the way, there's nobody crossing the border right now, and there's no border wall. So just so you know, it just takes a little commitment.
70 billion. It is amazing because, of course, the dollars were very, very different in those days, but the cost of World War II to the US was about $275 billion. And now we're just looking at one minor thing. The border wall and border security is a third of that, quarter of that.
Yeah. Let's see, I want to see how much of that is for surveillance technologies at the border.
Well, they'll only surveil uh, illegal immigrants. They won't surveil Americans.
But of course, yeah, because you're going to have your RFID tag embedded in your neck, and they're going to know that you're okay.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, so they got $3 billion for border surveillance technology. So that's that one. Let's see. I lost my little list here. Let me get back to it 1 second. Apologize. After that, we've got AI regulation moratorium. It basically says states for 10 years, there's a ban on state level artificial intelligence regulations.
Hmm.
So which overrides existing laws in over 60 jurisdictions.
Hmm. Well, if it keeps the states from making laws regulating anything, I suppose that's a good thing.
I'd rather the states do it though than the feds. At least there's like locally you have some kind of decision power, more control.
Well, perhaps.
I don't know. Yeah, but I agree with you. Obviously, we don't need more laws. It's good that they are rolling some back. There's also green energy rollbacks, eliminates clean energy tax credits established under the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's
Okay,
good.
that's good.
IRS direct file program termination. So this is abolishing the IRS's free tax filing service, favoring a public-private partnership filing system. Now, I'll just give my opinion on this one. I really wish the feds would just send you a bill because they know what you owe, and they make you go through this gigantic, extremely expensive exercise in order for you to basically sign at the bottom of a document where, mine is, 2 inches high, and I have to swear that all of that information is accurate. The kabuki theater involved in tax filing, where you just don't know the answer, but they do. I don't like this. So I know this is a federal program; they don't need it, but I just would assume I would prefer that they do it. Honestly,
I've kind of thrown my hands up when it comes to anything to do with taxes. I pay my accountant tens of thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars a year to sort through everything and pay my taxes. And I sign my tax return without even seeing it because it's pointless. I'm never going to be able to get through it.
Right, but you're
So
swearing that every item on there is correct.
I understand it. We live in a Kafka-esque universe for that reason. So I could be attacked and prosecuted for something that I've actually never even seen. And if I saw it, frankly, I wouldn't understand it because it would take a lot of training and research to understand it. The whole thing is a criminal charade.
Yep, I agree. Okay, university endowment tax. This increases taxes on large private university endowments, aiming to redirect funds. The problem
Hmm.
with this is that these endowments, I've learned recently that they are heavily invested in private equity. So I
Yes.
guess they're going to have to, get light on those positions. I wonder what implication that's going to have.
Yeah. Some of these universities have, I understand, the big ones like Harvard have actually thousands of private equity positions, an unbelievable number of private equity positions. They can't monitor them all. There's been a bit of a mania towards investing in private equity. Uh,
Well,
and
the
who
advantage
was
is
it?
you don't have to market to market, Doug. That's an advantage.
That's true. Who was it? Bill Ackman came out the other day and said that he'd have to give the value of these endowments about a 40% haircut in order to be realistic.
Yeah, and if they're all trying to sell their private equity positions at the same time, it might be much larger than that.
Yeah. And of course, it is funny with institutions like Harvard that apparently get a couple $1 billion per year from the US government to the university on top of these gigantic endowments that they have. I mean, these universities, the big ones, are really like a hedge fund with an attached school.
They are, and they do seem like they're set up to benefit finance and the people in it because investing in these private equity deals there's little transparency about what's going on. They don't have to market to market. The person who sold you into it basically can tell you the entire time, oh, don't worry, buddy, it's doing great. And it can be falling apart. I mean, who does this serve?
The whole system is completely corrupt. People have forgotten that the purpose of a university is to teach you how to think. And what you need is an Aristotle or a Socrates uh, walking around through a park with you doing that instead of having huge layers of bureaucracy and gigantic buildings. This is all bullshit. It's all totally corrupt.
Doug, the closest people are going to find to Socrates is you. So sorry to hear, sorry, and no, you don't want to hear that, but I'm telling you, that's as close as anyone's going to get. Next one is nonprofit oversight. Empowers the Treasury Department to revoke tax exempt status for nonprofits deemed to support terrorism. Now, I assume this means anti-Semitism.
There does seem to be a one-to-one equivalent when it comes to that. I don't know. Listen, who knows what they're going to do with these things? They interpret the laws whichever way they want. But there are entirely too many nonprofits and NGOs, way too many, by a
Well,
factor of 10 or 100.
I mean, I think Doge revealed the scam of these NGOs and nonprofits pretty clearly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You tax deduct the money that goes into it, and they're really not non-governmental organizations or NGOs. They work closely with the state, hand in glove. So
Especially the nonprofits that get 90% of their funding or more from the state in particular, like that's a problem. How about why those should be the ones that the Treasury Secretary can revoke their tax exempt status for, you know?
it's just another layer of corruption, of which there are many layers.
Couple of other just last minute things on the bill. It says it's a national debt increase. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the bill will add an extra 3.8 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. I think that number is extremely low. I heard numbers much larger than that, but it should add at least 3.8 trillion according to CBO.
It's funny, it used to be a good joke when Everett Dirksen, who was a senator from Illinois many years ago said, a billion here, a billion there. And pretty soon we're talking about real money. But now that really is a joke. And it's a trillion here or a trillion there.
Exactly. So this is only passed the House. This also goes to the Senate. There's probably going to be opposition there to some of the provisions, and I'm sure it'll probably balloon actually going to the Senate. There'll be more special favors tucked in for different constituencies. But it only passed the House by one vote, and it wouldn't even have passed that if a Democratic congressman hadn't died in the process.
Well, got to look at the bright side. It was a Democratic congressman that died.
Yep. Well, either way, we were going to get a big, beautiful bill. I think at least there's some regulation moratoriums and tax cuts in here. So I guess we should be appreciative of that.
Yeah. What this bill is disclosing to me is that our president, the Donald, is actually a real megalomaniac. He's out of control. He thinks that he's the ruler of the country, the ruler of the world. And it's gone to his head.
Well, and since you bring that part up, maybe I should bring up, let me just share my screen real quick so you can see he's putting up portraits on the USDA building, or maybe he didn't put it up, but one of his acolytes did. You see here on the Ag building, you got Trump on one side, and you got Lincoln on the other. Both two guys who respected, I think, America and the Constitution really well.
Yeah, for sure. But it is, Trump has no shame. What does he think? He's the Kim Jong-un that you can try to put up giant pictures of yourself on the National Mall? The president doesn't have a right to do that. It's just in bad taste. It's like him sending that meme around with him pretending to be the Pope. What's the matter with him? He's got no sense of taste or decorum.
Is it this one? And apparently it wouldn't be fans of Trump, they could make it, but he retweeted that one. And here's one here, I guess this is George Washington. Certainly somebody in the Revolutionary War. Got him as a detective. I guess he's on the hunt for Jeffrey Epstein's real killer. Someone's going to fuck around and find out. The Epstein files coming out. Don't worry.
Yeah, forget about that. They're not coming out, and we'll never find out.
Nope, I agree. And then here's this weird one where he's with a lot of cats. So, I don't know. What does this all mean about a leader that is, you can understand fan art, okay? That's fine. People can make what they want. That's fine. But the picture in the Ag building and the him reposting himself as Pope, I think there's implications to that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's shameful, and Trump is becoming shameless. I would be embarrassed if that happened to me, but he encourages it. So it makes me ask, what is the matter with this guy? And I speak as somebody that is an absolute Trump fan relative to what we could have gotten with Kamala. But
relative, you got to use the relative word is doing a lot of work there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so, okay, well, some other things. Rahm Emanuel, people may remember him from the Clinton era. He later became, I believe, the mayor of Chicago. Apparently, he's considering a run for president.
Yeah, well, another political hack, absolutely no values, very left-wing insofar as he has any values. But the thing I find disturbing about Rahm Emanuel running up a flag to see if anybody salutes for his being the Democratic nominee in 28 is that he may be an American citizen, but he's also an Israeli citizen. And you can't have high government officials being dual citizens, especially of Israel, frankly. So this is out of control.
He's also he's brothers with Ari Emanuel, who is like probably one of the biggest guys in Hollywood. Who, is he's the person who basically canceled Kanye, among others.
Oh,
It was him who rallied the troops to cancel Kanye. And if you want to know about what being canceled, people claim to be canceled all the time. That's not what happens. But Kanye was legitimately canceled, and now like his response is he's coming out and he's got his most popular song right now. It's called I don't think I can say it on this channel, but it's raising your arm to somebody with
yes, a
IH.
well-known German from previous generations, right?
Right. So it's not having maybe the effect that Ari Emanuel had hoped. He would probably want him to drift off into obscurity. But so his brother, they have a powerful family, and his other brother owns the UFC.
Is that right? Wow.
Or maybe it's Ari that owns the UFC. But his
Well,
brother owns the UFC.
anyway, this kind of underlines the argument that Kanye was making, which is why he got canceled. But frankly, somebody that wants to be president of the US, uh, it shouldn't even be considered if he's also a citizen of another country. And this should be true of any government official.
It also should have been true of people who were already president who weren't born in America. I don't know if you know of any, but I can think of
Oh,
one.
I'm thinking we had one a couple presidents ago,
Yeah, exactly.
and hopefully the Donald will unearth genuine facts about that individual.
Well, apparently his social security number was released. If this tweet I saw is to believed, in the first, the first three digits of your social security number indicate where you were born, the state,
Mhm.
and his indicates Connecticut.
Hmm. This is all stranger and stranger. Well, the good news about the Donald having control of the apparatus of the state is that at this point, he can use the apparatus of the state to get to the bottom of all of this. So I guess there's a bright side to
With
because
a,
the Donald has got to root out these people because after he's out of office, they will try to put him in jail, as they tried to do before this election too. So
but are you surprised there haven't been any actions thus far taken against any of those parties? I mean, I can't think of a single one.
yeah, that's the other thing that disturbs me. Where's the flurry of indictments and lawsuits? I haven't seen them. Maybe they're out there, but I haven't seen them.
I think we would have heard about them because MAGA would have been pretty excited about them. I think that they would have been. I think one of the things the most ardent at MAGA supporters do not want to talk about are where the indictments are. And they just keep saying trust the plan. It takes a long time to put a case together. You just got to go with it. It'll be okay.
Yeah, move along. Nothing to see here, folks.
Right. And did you see that clip where we had the FBI director and the assistant FBI director, Dan Bongino, on some Sunday show talking about how Epstein killed himself?
Yeah, that was completely shameful. I mean, and it was just brushed off. He says, "Well, I saw the files, and he killed himself." Well, what? I mean, the only I have to believe that the NSA or other miscreants in the U.S. government have found uh, embarrassing things on those two and told them, drop it, or we're going to disclose all we know about you because it makes no sense. And who was that? That was Maria Baratomo.
Hey, Bartoloma.
Or, yeah, right. She didn't follow up and ask him, what are you talking about? You were making a big deal out of this, and you're saying you saw the files and that's the end of it?
Right. And the other thing is, as I only saw clips of it, I didn't watch the entire interview, so I can't say for sure, but I had the impression that they brought it up themselves. They didn't need to say it. So it's suspicious to me even as to why they could have said, we're looking into it, but why they came out and said something that certainly discredits them in the eyes of the public.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't understand. It's almost like they were told, you're going to say this, and they did.
This gives me all of this stuff. It gives me an acute sense of cognitive dissonance because it conflicts with reality. Everything that I've thought was reality anyway.
Yeah, unless you can accept the reality that the uniparty is still a thing, and that once people get into those positions, somehow they're compromised, or they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they're sincere, if they have done anything in the past, they will be compromised when it's dug out and threatened to be disclosed.
Yeah. So the second thing was Washington Post, which has improved somewhat since Bezos, cleaned house there. But you said they had a bunch of book recommendations. I missed that issue.
Well,
Which one?
I always feel like I have to explain myself. How come I know what the WAPO is doing? Uh, Washington's fabulous fag hag publication. Uh, it's that as an Uruguay resident, they offer me an annual subscription for $10. And I figured, okay, it's worth it just to find out what these people are up to. Anyway, after Bezos cleaned house, 250,000 subscribers signed off and departed, and about half their staff left as well. It was like what is that communist rag in the U.S.? It was like
The
not the
Workers'
Red
Party?
Banner,
The Workers'
People's
Party?
Daily. I
Oh,
mean, it was unbelievably left wing, and it's better now, but it's still very left wing. And in these books they were reviewing, all of them, I'm not going to say all, I'm going to say 75% were written by Blacks or people with hyphenated names, which is always a tip-off to somebody that's trying to tell you something, and or women, preferably lesbians, talking about class warfare or LGBT or radical left stuff or, of course, anti-Trump. So those are the books that WAPO is recommending today, even though they've massively cleaned house. So for what it's worth.
it's you got to imagine it is tough to find a right-wing person who covers, um, who reads and would cover books. I mean, it seems like those are always left-wing people, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was a kind of an expose done on the National Library Association. And it turns out that all the librarians in the country, their culture within the library union or association or whatever these people have, I mean, they're all Marxists, hardcore socialists, and their choices of books they stock in their libraries and things that are related to that reflects their personal values. So, yeah, the left has totally captured the literary world.
What do you think about, there wasn't any mention, at least in the bill highlights that we saw, any payment for this golden dome that we've heard a lot of talk about in the last couple of weeks. I
Yeah,
wonder
we
what
don't know
people think
much
of that.
about the Golden Dome. It's kind of a military buff. I can't find out too much about it, but it's a satellite-based system. And the way it's supposed to work, we don't really know much about it, but it's a satellite-based system that will take out uh, rocket launches before they get into high Earth and go into the descent stage. Um, and how many hundreds of billions is it supposed to cost? Well, lots and lots. But the point that I'd make is this, is that ballistic missiles are like an antiquated technology at this point. Who would launch a ballistic missile attack at the US Nobody that has any brains, because you know where that missile is coming from. And the US is quite capable of destroying anything, anywhere, like a whole country. So nobody's going to launch that kind of attack at the US when it can counterattack and totally destroy them. So what do you need a Golden Dome for? Uh, and anyway, when somebody does seriously attack the US, if they do, I've long said that it's going to be a biological attack. There are many, many clever things you can do in a biological attack. Uh, One of the advantages of it is it won't destroy the infrastructure, which you want to take over later. Or you can do a cyber attack, because the whole world runs on computers. And if you destroy the software that runs the utilities and the gas stations and the financial system and everything, the US would wind up in a state of starvation in 2 weeks. So you don't need these missiles. Golden Dome is a stupidity, but they want to spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on it. And at the same time, it's going to act as a provocation to other people.
There's been a spate of seems like cyber attacks recently. The Spanish grid going down is a strange thing because actually, I looked at a chart. I was surprised, and there was it was overproducing the amount of power necessary. The demand at the time was substantially overproducing it, but somehow it got out of phase, or it got out of the signal changed somehow, and that caused the system to shut down for protection. So that easily could have been a cyber attack, that kind of thing, honestly.
Could have been. But Spain also has, uh, it's gone very, very big on wind and solar. And that could tie into it, because that's power that surges and disappears. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah, but
could
if
be
you look
part
at a
of it.
cycle, I saw this map, it shows the power is being produced and the demand. It was kind of like meeting like a market would. And the demand was way lower than the supply. Now, it could have been there would be some immediate drop at that time that could get it, but there wasn't on this chart. There was none of that. It got out of the right frequency,
Hmm.
which also could be a problem with solar and with wind, where the frequency, could be that. But I'm just saying something like this, it would be, you could hack some inverters, some industrial scale inverters, and cause something like this, I would imagine. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what it was, but it could be done. Um,
It makes sense that nefarious people working for foreign entities are investigating this stuff in detail and have the technical skills to make a lot of bad things happen.
well, and then they announced last week that apparently China has these things embedded in solar industrial scale solar systems that are deployed in the U.S. and elsewhere.
Well, that's another excellent reason to antagonize the Chinese, to make them want to counterattack. Well, sure, of course.
Right, exactly. And let's see, there's also the Spanish telecom went down the next day. All the internet, or not the next day, the next week, all the Spanish telecom
Yeah.
went down. There's a grocery store chain in the UK that's went down and was having all kinds of supply chain problems, like shelves empty because of it. So, there's a number of these things going on now. And so you can see that the Golden Dome doesn't help in any of those. If you assumed all those are actual cyber attacks, which I'm not saying they are, I don't know, Golden Dome does nothing.
But it's absolutely wonderful for Lockheed and Raytheon and God knows how many other so-called defense companies.
I hear the way they're looking at it is they're looking at, just how the oceans were, how the hegemon maintained control of the world, trade routes and so forth. Certainly the British and, the US after that. They say space is that frontier. Space is the same, would give you the same right to control all movement on Earth, really, all critical movements. And I think that that's the primary goal of it. Is if you can't maintain, If you just get it up there once, and you can drop a hypersonic weapon down on any point on the Earth in minutes. I mean,
Well, that's right. Rods from God. You transport telephone pole sized tungsten rods, drop them down, and they give you the equivalent of a precisely delivered nuclear explosion when they hit. And of course, Robert Heinlein's uh, seminal book, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, talks about a revolution on the moon. And the way the moon people want it is because they have the high ground and can simply drop rocks down on Earth. So, yeah, you're quite correct.
it's an excellent book. If you haven't read it, I'd highly encourage anyone, if you like sci-fi at all, got to read that one. It's so good.
Yeah.
Next one is this, what's going on in the wars in the world? I mean, we have both what's happening in Russia and Ukraine going on right now, which we thought it'd be settled. To be honest, I didn't think it'd be settled by now, but I know that I think you did, and I definitely think that the MAGA people definitely did think it'd be settled by now. It seems like it's escalated quite a bit in the last week.
Yeah, it does. Well, if Trump wanted to end this war, and I thought he did, all he has to do is withdraw funding from the Ukraine. No money, no fighting.
Yeah, not only that, but even if they just took away their ISR, the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance equipment. So that's the targeting information, and they're flying these ISR airplanes so close to the Russian border. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's so provocative. They could just pull that stuff at least. I mean, and they are not. It's accelerating. There are 800 plus drones being flown into Russia a day now. And there was a reported attack on, and you don't know what's true, right? Don't know what's true, but reportedly there was a drone swarm attack on Vladimir Putin's helicopter, which they managed to escape from, but took very seriously.
Yeah, and Trump then calls Putin crazy, which is, if you want to build relations with somebody, you don't call them crazy, because Putin counterattacked this latest drone swarm attack, which you almost have to do in these situations if you're dealing on state level politics. You have to counterattack. You can't just.
This is a zero-sum game, right?
Yeah, it is. But Trump apparently didn't even know. He said he didn't know that Putin's helicopter had been targeted individually to do this. So is Trump that ignorant? Is that cut off? Or is his staff purposely failing to tell him things which should be important before he shoots his mouth off? I don't know. Doesn't. But why hasn't he cut off funding to the Ukraine? And that ends the war right there.
Yeah, and you would think that the attempted assassination of a nuclear powered leader would be something that his staff would tell him.
Yeah.
And if they're withholding that kind of information, then that is frightening. I mean, that's frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all very frightening. It seems like everything we've talked about today is scary stuff, but I don't see any way around things getting even more scary. Trends in motion tend to stay in motion.
Yeah. Well, and that takes us to the Israel-Iran thing. I mean, there's in the news, the idea that Israel will go on its own and attack Iran, since the U.S. can't be drawn into it. And, personally, I think that the whole pretend distancing between Israel and the U.S., I just don't even buy it. I just think it's too coordinated and whatever. I just don't believe that is true. But even if you assume it is true, if Israel decides to go and attack Iran individually, you got to imagine that the Iranians are probably not going to see it as though the U.S. was not involved. in some way, supportive. If nothing else, they're U.S. weapons that are being dropped on them.
And they'll counterattack, and then the Israelis will ask Big Brother for help.
And we'll feel obligated to do it, or I won't. But
Oh,
I won't.
no,
But
that's between the Hatfields and the McCoys on the other side of the world. So God bless them both, but not my problem.
exactly. So, what do you think the odds of that happening are within this calendar year?
Hi. It seems like they're building up to a crisis.
Greater than 50%?
I think you got to say greater than 50%. Something's going to happen with these people, with what the Israelis are doing. Close to, yeah, of course. And what are the Iranians doing too? I mean, I think at this point the Iranians probably see the Israelis as a clear and present danger, not just a group that they don't like and would like to get rid of. Okay, fine. But now they see the Israelis as a clear and present danger, and therefore they will be proactive against the Israelis, getting ready to counterattack.
Well, and certainly you can imagine that their motivation to abandon the nuclear weapons program probably diminishes in an environment like this. And that doesn't go up, right? They're more likely to believe that it's really important for them to keep this potential system than it is to let it go. At this point, it's just not worth the trade-off.
Yeah, as Kim Jong-un in North Korea showed, if you have nuclear capability, nobody dares attack you. So that's a good reason for every country, every government, I should say, to have nuclear capability to forestall being attacked.
Yeah, I think the best model of that is Gaddafi, actually. You see what happened to him. He tried to cooperate with the U.S. and he had the most miserable death possible.
Yeah, and it's funny, nobody talks about Libya anymore after that disaster that was fomented by Hillary and friends, that actually Libya is two countries now. It's not one country called Libya, it's two separate countries. But nobody talks about that. It's not written about anywhere.
Do they have different names?
No, because they both claim that they rule Libya, so they haven't separated formally.
Right. They don't want to give up the legitimate name by calling themselves something else. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So,
Well, I have heard Trump talk about Libya recently. I think he talked about displacing a bunch of Gazans there.
oh, yeah, right. But which half of Libya might that be in?
The slave market portion, whichever one has that, or maybe they both do.
Right. And what's going to happen to those Gazans? I don't know that they can stay where they are.
Well, that seems to be Trump and Netanyahu's point of view.
Well, as long as they're not shipped to the US, that's number one, from my personal point of view. Not shipped to Uruguay or Argentina either, very unlikely. Where will they ship them? If I was a Gazan, I wouldn't like being shipped someplace, but that's what's going to happen.
It's what's going to happen. And you know what? Honestly, the standards, the quality of life that they live under right now, some of it, even if it's Libya, it could feel like a relief, honestly.
Yeah, these people are constantly bombed and shelled and hunted by soldiers, and there's no food, there's no medicine, there's no safe place to live or sleep. It must be actually hell on earth in Gaza.
There was a video that circulated around the other day of an IDF soldier shooting a horse that was drawing a wagon of flour. Pretty miserable watching the horse die, honestly.
That's actually quite disgusting.
It was disgusting. It was not good at all. Okay, let me make sure I've covered everything here. So we've got Rahm Emanuel, we did the Washington Post, Golden Dome, Israel, Iran, Trump memes with him as a superhero. Oh yeah, there is one where he's literally Captain America. I didn't show you that one. And the big, beautiful bill. Yeah, I think that's all I had on my list, Doug. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about today?
Nothing, but there will be lots more next week, which actually uh, shocks and amazes me that next week we'll have an equal size panoply of bad things to talk about. I wish we could find some really good things to talk about. Good
You know,
stuff that's happening in the world.
we didn't even talk about the markets today to see how the markets are doing or anything.
Oh,
Gold is just under 3,300. We've got the S&P is down just a little bit. Basically, it's like nothing's really happening in the market. Bitcoin's down to 107 after breaking the record of over $110,000 per Bitcoin.
yeah, random fluctuation.
Yep, and let's see, treasuries are up, but not too much. So yeah, the let's see, 10 years at 4.49 and the 30-year is well, it's up 4 basis points. That seems like a lot for a day. And just under 30% for the 30, just under 5%.
Well, what really concerns and interests me is what's happening with mining companies. And there was a chart which we saw last week that shows that in terms of market capitalization, there's a smaller percentage of all stocks in mining now than has ever been the case in history. Over the last 120 years, roughly, mining companies have typically been about 10% of the stock market. Now they're at the lowest level in history, about 1%. And I would like to direct people to our experts roundtable, which is quite educational and quite interesting, where we have a dozen geologists basically questioning companies. And it's quite an education, and can find some very good fundamental mining stocks.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We have that. We set up a Substack just for that called expertsroundtable.substack.com. So you can go and you can sign up on that list. You'll get a notification about every single one of these we do. It is Doug and I and 10 to 12 other really intelligent, objective, hard questioning individuals who sit in front of a company that presents their mining stock, and it's great. I mean, these sessions are great. I learn a ton because I know less than everyone else on the call about these stocks. I mean, I've been participating in them for years, but compared to a Brent Cook, I mean, I'll never know what he's forgotten. I mean, it's just not even close. So anyway, these are fantastic, totally objective analysis of these companies that you get from these guys, including like we have a little behind the scenes once the company leaves where we just talk amongst ourselves about what we liked or didn't like. And we just did one of those yesterday. It will be released tomorrow morning on expertsroundtable.com. We'll also send it out to the crisis investing list. And if you really want a good education in how experts look at these companies, I think you'll get a ton out of each of these presentations. You'll also find some, frankly, I watched the one from yesterday and I bought the stock. I mean, it is very compelling. So, you might also get a good stock tip out of it too for free.
It's a fantastic resource. I'm really pleased with it.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
And it's free. We're not charging anything for it. It's just
the company pays us for the opportunity to sit in front of a Shark Tank-like group. Actually, is how it works.
yeah.
So, that's how it works, and we get. And I think frankly, we would be doing 5 times as many if companies weren't so afraid of talking to these guys.
That's true. They're afraid of being asked the wrong questions, which these guys are not afraid to ask them.
No, and it is. It is not surprising, though. Honestly, most companies do not stand up to scrutiny, and so it's not surprising. But one of the great things is even when the company doesn't have the perfect answer, how they handle the objection that they hear from these guys tells you a lot about them, about their character, about their knowledge of the subject. and how sincere they are. And so they don't even have to have all the right answers in order to succeed, as far as I'm concerned. But you can also tell if somebody's trying to, you know, get around a topic. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Out of the 9 Ps, by far the most important one is the first one, P, people.
got to have the right team. Yep. Okay. So if you want to see a kind of a really solid team, then check out the one tomorrow. It'll be on Crisis Investing and Experts Roundtable. I spent this morning editing it, so that'll be ready to go. All right. Anything else, Doug?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Talk to you
All right.
soon, Matt.
Yep, we'll wrap it up here. Now, also, if you have questions for Doug, you should, we'll do question and answer on Friday. Best thing to do is, as a paid subscriber to Crisis Investing, you can ask directly in our chat group that's on Substack, or you can ask the question through File. But we like all kinds of questions: existential questions, investing questions, questions about geopolitics. You know, we might not give you the best.
Interesting questions.
Yes, the more interesting for us, the more entertaining it is. We can't promise the answers will be always the best, but we'll give it our best shot.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Doug. Talk to you
Thanks,
Friday.
Matt.